Agents are going through materials found today during a search of the Fulton County, Georgia election office. That search is said to be related to the 2020 election. Correspondent David Spunt has details tonight. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening. FBI agents are still on site at the records warehouse for the Fulton County, Georgia Board of Elections. The matter is sealed before a court, meaning details are limited, but we can report this is related to the 2020 presidential election. Sources tell Fox News that agents retrieved documents, phones, and computers after a judge signed a warrant. President Trump has long made Georgia, and specifically Fulton County, a target of his complaints relating to the 2020 election. Shortly after that election, Trump spoke to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and said he needed 11,780 votes to win the state. At the time, Raffensperger said he felt pressure from Trump and denied any widespread election fraud. He continues to deny it to this day. Now, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis brought state criminal charges against then former President Trump and others in 2023 for conspiracy to overturn the election.
Now, I want you to think about something. Giuliani, I think they tried to get him for like $140 million for bringing up and exposing a rigged election. You knew it was rigged. I knew it was rigged. They all knew it was rigged because there was no reason to get hostile or not want to do a real recount. Now, I got a couple of clips I'm going to play for you that shows uncategorically that they cheated. We all said it. They owe us an apology. They owe President Trump an apology. Everybody knew what they were doing, but they tried to lie about it. Now, I'm going to play a couple of clips that proves without a shadow of a doubt. They've even admitted to it not too long ago. I think it was 317,000 ballots that wasn't even certified. How's that even possible? They were running duplicates left and right. And if you said anything about it, they drug you through the mud and used all this fraud. Now, I hope somebody's going to go to jail now because somebody needs to be held accountable for what happened. We know Joe Biden to get 81 million votes. Brad Raffensperger needs to be locked up. Brian Kemp, that fraud, needs to be locked up. Fani Willis needs to be locked up. And a whole lot more people who's down there who was cheating. Now, I want you to listen to some of these. We're going to randomly play some of these clips, proving the point that we all knew.
They have been removed from this facility, out of our...
Now, this is the fella. He's whining now because he's saying that he don't have a charge anymore, but so he's whining. But look at the look on her face and his face. They know they're up the creek without the paddle.
Control. We don't know where they're being taken. We don't know what's going to happen to them. So we can no longer, and I can no longer, as chair of this board, satisfy not only the citizens of Atlanta, but the citizens of the world, that those ballots are still secure. So that is a major concern that I have right now. Yeah, my point is, once they were here, as long as they were here in control of Fulton County.
This clown is a joke. His name is, he's the Fulton County chairman, Rob Pitts. He's at the warehouse saying it was secure. They wasn't secure because you guys, you were losing everything. Plus, you were rerunning ballots. You were certifying ballots that had not even been verified. So I don't need you trying to lie about it. He needs to go to jail.
I was confident that they were safe and secure. And the other point I'd like to make, this goes back to the 2020 elections. For the life of me, I still cannot understand the fascination about the 2020 elections, which occurred 6 years ago. That election is over with.
It's over with. See, this is what people want to do, a hit and run. Now, let's go through some of the fraud we know for a fact. We know he's lying. We know Brad Raffensperger's lying. We know Brian Kemp lied.
What we're looking at, Heather and Steve, are tally sheets that were the auditors for the Georgia audit that was conducted on November 14th and 15th in Fulton County. They filled these out as they counted the ballots. And typically you would see 37 to 43, 61 to 48, something like that. But here we have tally sheets that are 100 to nothing, for ballots. So somebody filled this out. But it's not just one of these. We have 7 of these, and we're going to kind of scroll through and show you these live. There's another one, 100-0. The actual counts of these are like 59-42 in terms of ballot images. Here's one that's 150-0.
Yeah, so basically the people that were doing the audit would count the batches and then write in fraudulent numbers because they have the corresponding images for these batches and they do not match these sheets. So whoever was doing them commit fraud. And what I had asked.
Now, why did anybody catch that? Because they wasn't looking for fraud. They were looking to cheat, and that's what they did. This is including William Barr. He needs to be investigated. The FBI, Christopher Wray, needs to be investigated. Here's Brad Rassenberger lying.
Happened in 2020. 28,000 people skipped the presidential race and yet voted down ballot in other races. The Republican congressman got about 28,000 more votes collectively than President Trump did. That's why he came up short.
This bastard here needs to be locked up.
As simple as that. Now, people weren't, if you're a Republican, weren't pleased with those results. But we had a fair, honest election, and we'll have a fair, honest election in 2024.
Fulton County made a stunning admission about the 2020 election. After almost 5 years of assuring voters all procedures were followed.
Now we get to the point that you're admitting that you lied.
Turns out that may not be entirely true.
A stunning admission earlier this month from an attorney representing Fulton County's election board.
The tapes that are an issue in this case have been produced. They just weren't signed.
The ticker tapes she's talking about, shown here, are almost like receipts spit out by voting tabulators on election night. State law says they must be signed by poll workers for verification, but some 150 tapes tracking the votes of some 315,000 people during early voting in 2020 weren't signed.
At best, this is sloppy and it's lazy. At worst, it could be egregious, and it could have affected an election.
It did affect the election because nobody in their right mind believed that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. And then you have this.
Of a poll worker named Ruby Freeman running the same.
This is the one, because of her, this is one of the ones who put the lawsuit against Mayor Giuliani and tried to destroy the man when he was right.
A stack of ballots through the counting machines multiple times. Ironically, Ruby Freeman was later given the Presidential Citizens Medal by Joe Biden for her work during the 2020 election.
You can't make it up, but there's more.
And through the voter rolls, and we recognized that just based on residency, there were 364,000 ineligible voter records. So with that as a premise, I went to go and meet with Secretary Raffensperger, and here's where things get interesting, because he had already certified the election November 20th. I went and met with him December the 16th, and in that meeting was Secretary Raffensperger and many of his staff and others, and we talked about what True the Vote was helping Georgia citizens do by way of filing these elector challenges. And I said, this is a huge number, and it's going to leave a mark, and I'm just letting everybody know it's coming. And Secretary Raffensperger, I'll never forget it, pulled out a piece of paper, kind of back on the napkin, did a little bit of quick math, and said, yeah, 364,000, about 14% of Americans move every year. We haven't been able to clean the rolls because of this lawsuit. So, yeah, that sounds about right. That's about how many ineligible records there are. But what they didn't do in certifying and recertifying and all of the audits and all of the things, all of the great efforts that they say they went through, they never went back to look and see how those 364,000 ineligible voters voted. And so now what we know is that 67,000 of them did vote. Flash forward, he's on that call, the fateful call between Secretary Raffensperger and President Trump and others on January the 2nd. And on that call, he knew, because we had just had the meeting 2 weeks previous, he had already affirmed our methodology, affirmed our numbers. And Steve, what's more, told me Sounds about right. You know, the GOP should have been doing this all along. So it was a cover-up.
Here's that phone call.
In Fulton, where they dumped ballots, you will find that you have many that aren't even signed, and you have many that are forgeries.
He used this phone call to try to get Donald Trump indicted for trying to strong-arm him, he says.
Okay? You know that. You know that. You have no doubt about that. And you will find you will be at 11,779 within minutes, because Fulton County is totally corrupt, and so is she totally corrupt. And they're going around playing you and laughing at you behind your back, Brad. Whether you know it or not, they're laughing at you. And you've taken a state that's a Republican state, and you've made it almost impossible for a Republican to win because of cheating, because they cheated like nobody's ever cheated before.
That's what this fraud, Brad Reisenberger, who's supposed to be a Republican, Brian Kemp covered up too. And then they changed the laws after Donald Trump lost. They never thought he was going to win again because they thought they had gotten away with this. All of them lied about it. The FBI was in on it. The DOJ was in on it. The governor was in on it. All of the election folks were in on it. Now they're panicking because now they have seized the records and they can prove the fraud. All I want to know is anybody going to go to jail? Because there's plenty of evidence.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Most people in here are very familiar with the Ligon report that came out in December just following the election of 2020, especially my friend Sam back there. What he said in that was there is ample evidence that this cannot be certified. Now, why is that important? Because Judge Ligon, Senator Ligon, was a judge for 16 years in Brunswick, Georgia. If anybody knows what evidence looks like, it's Judge Ligon. So shortly after that, on December 22nd, Secretary Raffensperger had a press release that said, I'm bringing together all of government to go after 250 credible cases of fraud in the state of Georgia. 250 credible cases. 2 weeks later, he went to the United States Congress. He wrote a letter to Vice President Pence, all the members of Congress, and said, nothing is wrong in Georgia. There's no fraud. In 3 weeks, we solved all these 250, at that time, known issues of fraud. So you tell me where the fraud is. Many of us, including some attorneys, looked at the letter, a 10-page letter to the U.S. Congress. It had 42 false statements in it. Our Secretary of State told 42 false statements to the United States Congress and the Vice President. So within that document was the Pro V&V audit. He told us, the citizens, he told the SEB, he's told many courts that this Pro V&V audit took place. I worked with Governor Kemp. I worked with Evan Myers, one of his attorneys. I worked with the Inspector General, Scott McAfee. And they tried to convince me that the Secretary of State and Pro V&V told them that this audit took place. Well, I asked them, how many counties told you the audit took place? 0. We did open records requests to the counties, and it came back where 0 audits were done by Pro V&V.
So I rest my case. There's no way in the world you're going to tell me that the 2020 election was on the up and up. And you're not going to tell me that Brian Kemp, Brad Reisenberger, and the rest of these elected officials, they're panicking now because they know the gig is up. Now you want to ask yourself, do you think Pam Bundy will actually prosecute him? That's where you're going to run into the problem at, because she don't look like she wants to prosecute any damn body.